And welcome back to the Hot Lap. Welcome to all the news coming into the Miami Grand Prix weekend. It was media day today, so we've got a couple of snippets. We've got a few headlines. Let's get right into it, shall we? So our first headline is, drumroll, Sainz risking it all. What do you mean, pray tell? Well, he apparently has said no to Audi, which means he's risking it to go to either Red Bull or Mercedes. Could he end up without a job at all? That would be absolutely horrendous, wouldn't it, for the guy, the only guy that's beaten the Red Bulls in the last, 2023 and 24 seasons so far. Lewis wanting Adrian Newey. I appreciate that's not really exactly a surprise, but we'll see what he has to say. He can't wait. He respects him. Newey, Hamilton, Ferrari, Leclerc. Oh. Danny Rick on Lance Stroll not yet apologising for, let's be fair, a mistake that was very much Lance Stroll's fault. Also, Max wanted Newey to stay. I don't think he quite begged him, but Max, he gives us a few feelings on what he thinks with Adrian Newey departing Red Bull in 2025. Rain potentially for Miami, most noticeably around the sprint. We'll get into that more, try and be a bit more accurate there. And Hulk on why he chose Audi. So first up, for the news, we've got Sainz. He's apparently risking it all. So, yep, and this is according to reports in the Spanish media. Carlos Sainz may have already turned down Audi in favour of pursuing a seat elsewhere. The Ferrari driver, he's not yet secured a seat on that F1 calendar, following the Scuderia decision, as we know, to replace him with one of the greatest of all time. Okay, so Sainz, though, as of right now, he's probably the hottest property on the driver market that is available, minus obviously Max Verstappen becoming available. And his performances for Ferrari over the past year, and the fact that he's still without a seat, is interesting. And we've got unconfirmed seats, as I mentioned, at Red Bull and Mercedes. Now, if Sainz does commit to Audi, which he's reportedly not, he'd likely have, though, a year of building with the Sauber team ahead of Audi's takeover in 2026. And there's no guarantee that Audi will be that fast. But Sainz is believed to have received an offer from Red Bull to return to the company where he made his F1 debut, coming full circle, albeit that debut was with the Toro Rosso team. And Mercedes also have one eye on him. But with Audi, there's no guarantee of any sort of success anytime soon. To be fair, you could make the same statement about Mercedes and maybe Red Bull going into the 2026 season. But PlanetF1.com is reporting that at Mercedes and Red Bull, more immediate success is likely from 2026. The same question marks over the ability to nail those regulations that come into play, maybe even more so for Red Bull, because no Newey. But they have Pierre Wache. They do have a talent there, so it's not like the mitigated disaster some people would lead you to believe. And now, adding to that is a concern that Mercedes is gearing up to focus next year on George Russell and perhaps the arrival of highly rated junior Kimi Antonelli, who has been quite solid in testing the 2022, I believe, Mercedes. Now, with Sauber and Audi confirming Nico Hülkenberg last week, following what was months of speculation. Audi really wanted that German driver. Spanish media have suggested Audi is now set to announce its second driver, but it's not going to be Sainz. According to Antonio Lobato, a respected journalist with close links to the Sainz family, Sainz has decided not to accept Audi's offer, despite it being a higher monetary bid than others. It's reported that Sainz has missed the deadline set by Audi to make up his mind. I wonder if it was the end of April, whether or not to sign with the company, in order to risk trying to land a seat with the current frontrunners, Red Bull or Mercedes. But let's be fair, at the time of writing, neither is particularly guaranteed. Next up, we've got Lewis Hamilton on his views of teaming up with Adrian Newey. This is a quick clip from, I think, from the press conference here. Let's just quickly play that. It's literally 17 seconds.
What do you think the chances are that you could partner with Adrian Newey in the future?
If I was to do a list of people that I'd love to work with, he would absolutely be at the top of it.
What's the chances, do you think?
I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
Now, to be fair, it's it's that wry smile he gives kind of like at the end where you're thinking, okay, does he know something we don't? Was he, one of the reasons he went to Ferrari was because Mercedes didn't they couldn't agree to their terms. But Hamilton, as you see here, he very much would love to work with Adrian Newey. And I think the whole of Italy are begging Adrian Newey to sign on that dotted line to work for Maranello. Will he? don't know. I mean, Hamilton also said in the press conference, I mean, this is all private conversation stuff, but if I was to do a list of people that I'd love to work with, he said he would absolutely be at the top of it. He also added that Adrian, he's got such a great history, track record, has obviously just done an amazing job through his career and engaging with teams, and the knowledge that he has, and I think he would be an amazing addition. But he did say, I think we've already got a great team. They're already making huge progress, strides forward in their cars quicker this year. It would be a great privilege to work with him. There you go. I mean, no massive surprise there. So Daniel Ricciardo on, yes, the never-ending Stroll problem. Ricciardo, he said that Lance Stroll hasn't cleared the air with him over their Formula One Chinese Grand Prix clash, but he suggested there's little point as Stroll isn't sorry at all. And as we know, he ran into Danny Ricciardo under the safety car, the only driver to do so. And Ricciardo was incensed by the incident, especially after Lance intimated that he was an idiot, but then later on declared that it wasn't really aimed at Danny Rick. But the Australian revealed in Miami that he and Stroll still hadn't cleared that air, suggested that there would be no point, because once again Stroll feels he's blameless. He said, I would say no, because, this is Danny Ricciardo, I feel it's not going to go anywhere. Ricciardo replied when asked whether he wanted to speak with Mr. Stroll. He said, I cannot accept an apology. I can accept an apology, sorry. I'm not that much of an a-hole, but the fact that there's not even that, he clearly doesn't think he did anything wrong, so I guess there's not much to say. He went on to say, by saying, obviously, if we sit next to each other in the driver's briefing and he wants to chat, I'm not going to ignore him or anything. Now, Ricciardo explained that in previous incidents, he always made a point of clearing the air with his rivals. I mean, that's the thing to do, to be fair. Most drivers do that. Maybe not Max, but most drivers. Kevin Magnussen could be another one. But anyway, I digress. Even if he wasn't fully convinced, he was in the wrong. Just to avoid other drivers painting a target on his back, he said, when I was younger, maybe I was more stubborn, didn't always apologise for something that was my fault. For the last few years, if I take someone out, or it's 50-50, I'll say, look, maybe I could have done better. So sorry for ruining your day. I'll just text them, clear the air a little bit. Yeah, not too bad. I mean, makes perfect sense, doesn't it? So onwards, Mr. Max Verstappen, in relation to Adrian Newey. I mean, this guy, understandably, who would want Adrian Newey to leave? But he said, Max has said, I told Newey I wanted him to stay. And he understands Newey's decision to leave, Red Bull, fair enough. And he said, I would have preferred, of course, Adrian to stay. And that's what I said to him. However, Verstappen said Newey is right to put himself first in his decision, which is that something Max may well be doing later. Max went on to say, you have to do what you think is best for yourself, because at the end of the day, F1 is a bit of a shark tank, and I think it's very important that you think about yourself. Absolutely, Max. That you make the right decision for yourself, absolutely, and your family. So I also don't blame him. How kind of you, Max. And now if someone wants to leave, you go and pursue the other goals in your life. So that's absolutely fine. And as we know, Max is on a long-term contract with Red Bull until 2028. Will he make it there, though? I mean, that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Will he make it to 2028? Rain for Miami. Massive question mark. Let's get into that. So, risk of wet starts to the sprint race and the Grand Prix. Oh, exciting times. Do you remember that wet sprint we had in Belgium where they ended up changing tyres? So Formula One drivers may have to contend with wet starts to Saturday's sprint race and Sunday's Grand Prix over Miami. And let's be fair, it would make the racing a lot more exciting. Miami's quite a ball the last two times. All glamour and glitz and no meh. But the Miami International Autodrome has hosted two Grand Prix, as we know. Now, the second consecutive sprint round will see a sprint race held in the early afternoon before Sunday's Grand Prix. However, forecasts indicate that a risk of the track could be wet before the start of both of those sessions. Friday expect to be the lowest risk of rain at the weekend, meaning drivers will have the benefit of a dry practice. Imagine they didn't. Imagine it was wet. All the practice sessions were wet. The sprint was wet. They couldn't set the car up for the Grand Prix. No one knows. However, heading into Saturday, there's a significant risk of rain falling in the morning prior to the sprint race starting at midday. Now, while forecasts do not expect rain during the sprint race or following Grand Prix qualifying session, there's a chance that the track could still be drying from earlier showers, so to speak. However, high temperatures again expected to be in the 20s. Moisture should dry out relatively quickly. Will they all have to start on inters, or will it be a question mark? I mean, come on. But, yes, We want that. We want excitement. Please, rain. From rain to Nico Hülkenberg. Yes, he has signed, obviously, as we know, with Audi / the Kick Sauber team. And he's mentioned Seidel is one of the main reasons he has signed. He's the former McLaren boss, but he goes back even further than that with Nico Hülkenberg to Le Mans. So as we know, last week, Audi made its move in F1's turbulent driving market as it signed Hülkenberg to a multi-year contract that means he will leave the Haas squad at the end of the 2024 campaign. Now, the move, which had been in the works since midway through 2023, involved discussions about Hülkenberg possibly joining Sauber for the season before he ended up continuing for a second year with Haas. It reunites Hülkenberg and Seidel after they won Le Mans. And when asked about how important Seidel had been getting him on board with Sauber ahead of his weekend's Grand Prix, he said, yeah, he's also the driving factor there, one of the deciders, one of the top key people in management at Audi. So, of course, it came through him. And he's a very, direct and straightforward guy with me. Heidfeld, not Heidfeld? What am I talking about? Heidfeld. Hülkenberg then provided an example of his relationship with Seidel, a conversation from the 2020 F1 season when the German driver was out of full-time work, having been dropped by Renault at the end of the previous year, and Seidel was then the McLaren team boss. He said, I remember 2020 when it was COVID, before the season started, and I was not sure what I wanted to do, but I remember phoning him up and seeing he was at McLaren, obviously, at the time. I was like, Andy, how's it going? Is there maybe a chance for me? And he was straight, no, don't even get your hopes up. It's not going to happen. And this time around, years later, it was very different. He was very keen to sign me up and have me. And at the Hard Rock Stadium on Thursday, Hülkenberg also recalled his previous season racing for Sauber in 2013, which was a very different set of circumstances. It was over a decade ago, and it was basically viewed as the Ferrari junior team before even Haas came in. And he said with the team everything was fine. It was only one person that it was difficult, and that was the team principal, Manisha Kaltenborn at the time, which was a bit difficult and tricky situation, but everything else was fine. Every team I worked with and raced for, I never had problems with the team. With the mechanics, engineers, I've always enjoyed working with all team members and working as a force, as a team, pushing performance, all that great stuff there. So that's pretty much it. That's all the main news. What's interesting also is Valtteri Bottas has intimated that one of the reasons that Audi chose Hülkenberg is, yes, because he's German. I think Bottas is as good as Hülkenberg, albeit Bottas does have a podium and wins. Hülkenberg doesn't. You can make an argument that Hülkenberg hasn't really had the chance, but he has. Brazil, 2012. Just saying. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Hülkenberg... So to Audi, Bottas is still talking to people apparently about a potential driver moves and to another team. So we'll see. Could he possibly go to Haas? I do think that would be a good swap. But then what do you do with Kevin Magnussen? Do you keep him? Probably not, because Ollie Behrman's coming. So if Bottas does go to Haas, question marks potentially over Kevin Magnussen. Anyway, if you made it to the end, please send us a like, send us a subscribe. That would be absolutely amazing. Give us a like. If you do any of them, you're a champion. If you do 2 of them, you're a multiple world champion in our eyes. We'll speak to you soon. The next F1 show is going to be probably after qualifying for the Miami Sprint. Speak to you next time.